Hello, we are charting the higher octave with iconic artist, singer, songwriter Perry Blake. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Anne.
Thank you so much for joining me. You're all the way in Ireland,
Yeah,
and
I'm in the northwest of Ireland, very close to the border with Northern Ireland,
yeah,
which is governed by the UK, obviously.
yeah, and you are Irish. I know
Yes.
you were born in
Like Sligo, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's very close to where I live, but I spent a long time in London. I spent maybe a third of my life in London. So yeah, I'm back living in Ireland now. The weather is terrible and it's summer.
Oh, cold,
Yeah, not so cold, but raining.
but I heard it's beautiful. I've never been to Ireland. I want to go one of these days. Well, I mean, when I think of Ireland, and especially where you were born, I think of William Butler Yeats and
Yes.
his beautiful poetry about the what is it? The wild swans of cool. I think of that place. It's so beautiful.
Well, a lot of Yeats' poetry, a fair proportion of it was actually written about the exact area where I live.
Oh
It's in
yeah. Hmm.
County Leitrim, and he also wrote about County Sligo. So, um, yeah, it is beautiful. We could do with a little more sunshine. It rains a lot.
I need to give you some of the sunshine in Hawaii and bring it down over there so you feel a little bit
Bring it on.
warmer. Well, you are an amazing lyricist as well as music. I know I love the down tempo style a little bit. I love that. And I know
Yeah.
you have some great inspiration, obviously. I can tell from just the lyrics and the songwriting and everything. What are some of the inspirations for your music? Like artists and stuff like that.
I I don't fully know, but um, the type of music I grew up listening to, obviously Bowie was an influence. You can hear that in the records, but also people like David Sylvian,
Oh,
um, whose brother Steve Jansen
uh,
was my drummer for a while, as was Neil Conti, who drummed with David Bowie. So obviously many years later, because like I'm 54 now, I've been making records for 26 years,
right, right. Yeah.
So yeah. So the influences are varied, not always music. Um, I mean, I'm not a huge reader. I've half read a few thousand books. I've finished a few, but I would read. I have and still do read quite a bit of the metaphysical poets like John Donne, that kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Oh,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
it,
love Andrew Marvel.
yeah, I'm
Marvel.
not overly familiar with Andrew Marvel, but I mean I go back to the same sort of patch all the time. And it just starts a bit of a fire going, if you like. It ignites something. But I really don't know precisely where the inspiration comes from, and probably if I did, I wouldn't be doing what I do. I leave a lot of it to chance, which keeps it fresh for me,
Yeah.
you know?
Because you've been writing music, you've been making music for quite a long time, and you have this new album coming out. It already came out. It's called Death of a Society Girl on Moochin About Records. And can you tell us a little bit about that album? Because it's a lot of great tracks here, actually.
Thank you.
Even from the beginning, I love that. I love this title, Requiem. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm very fond of Requiem. The album's actually been finished quite a while. It's just my record label wanted to get the right window, and actually the last piece of the puzzle was getting Paul McGann on the title track,
Mhm.
um, and he wasn't available, so we delayed. I delayed the record for quite a bit,
Oh,
and I mean, I started writing this album during lockdown. Um, so really, essentially, I was just spending most of my time in my studio, which isn't where I live. It's close by.
mhm.
It's maybe 5 miles away. Um, and essentially, I dumped a lot of songs. I mean, out of every 5 or 6 songs I write, one might make it through.
Hmm.
Um,
Oh,
and I start with melody, so I don't finish the lyrics unless I think the song's going to cut it. Or so occasionally a line will make its way into another song that might be better or just makes me feel better about it. Um, it is a real devotion. I mean, I make a living from music, but I'm not Coldplay. I'll never fill a stadium, and that's fine, you know. But I do have a devout audience. I have people around the world who love what I do.
oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. For sure.
I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, I know you've been involved in film and TV and all kinds of things there as well.
Yeah, yeah. I've done a lot of stuff. It always starts with a director getting in touch with me or a production company saying, "Can we use your music?" And it's very flattering, and it gets your music heard by maybe people who've never heard of you. I have a couple of some new fans who they didn't know I existed, and they're like, why aren't you better known? And that's it's you can't choose. When you choose a career in music, it really is you are rolling a dice. You're not
I know,
essentially
yeah, for sure.
you know
Yeah. I mean, it's a tough industry, actually.
yeah. Yeah, it's I mean it is very rewarding when it works, and gigging is always important.
Yeah, yes. So I know you work a lot with Graham Murphy. So tell us about that collaboration.
Well, Graham was in a band many years ago, and I had just gotten my first manager who managed me for 14 years, a guy called Neville Bengali, a guy from London. And he just said there's a guy you should work with. He's got a band, but the band aren't great, the singer's not great, but the his arrangements are really good. And within the first week, we started working together in my manager's studio. We had 5 tracks for the first album, which made it to the record. Um, and we've been working ever since. And Graham, it's a tight little production unit. Myself and Graham write together. I write the lyrics and the melodies, and about 50% of the music, and he puts his string arrangements on top and embellishes the songs to bring them to a just a higher quality, if you like. Um, and then Chris O'Brien, who's Graham's partner in his studio, Chris mixes the tunes with Graham collaborating. And I just sit in the background until it's close to a mix, and then I'll listen because otherwise you get kind of brain fog. It's very hard to tell.
Yeah. And I know that this new album is called The Death of a Society Girl. Is that is that based on a particular person? Is it?
Yes, it
Oh,
is, but not somebody I knew very well. Somebody I knew. Yeah, essentially, it's a lady from many years ago that I knew to say hello to. Um, who she took her own life and nobody understood why. I didn't know her well enough to have any idea why, but she came from a wealthy family. She seemed she was quiet, but um and she was peripheral to. I wouldn't call her exactly. She was a quiet society girl, but she was part of that kind of set. Um, and it's not wholly based on her. It's based on the idea of
oh yeah, the idea
um,
that
people
okay.
like that.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. And that particular track, Death of a Society Girl, features Paul McGann, right? Who's who has a
Yeah.
who's in the BBC, plays some roles there, and as well as Queen of the Dam, Empire of the Sun, Alien 3, all those other things. How did you get the collaboration with him to do this?
It was just a stroke of good fortune. My record label, Jason Lazelle, who owns my record label in the UK, Moochin About, he went to Comic Con, which it's
Oh,
held all over the world in different
yeah,
places.
yeah, I'm
A
familiar.
mutual friend of his also happened to be a friend of McGann's, and he was there. So they had a beer, and he said, "Would you this guy's looking for a narrator, a voiceover on 6 lines or something on a track. Would you do it? And he said, if I like it. So he listened to the track, and then he said he knew my music. He knew my earlier stuff, so he said yes. He said I can't do it for at least 3 months because I'm filming somewhere. So we waited because I really think he brings that song to life. I originally did the VO on it, and I wasn't happy with what I was doing. And I asked one other person before Paul, and it was an excellent newsreader with the BBC in the UK, um, Neil Nunes, but they're not allowed to do anything else. If you're with the BBC, you
Yeah.
can't, you can't, you can't be outsourced. So, thankfully McGann came along, and he's just a perfect fit, you
Yeah.
know.
The record label that Moochin About, I mean, that's an incredible label. I mean, I love I'm just looking at the some of the songs of some of the artists in there. Yeah.
Yeah, only three of us are still alive though. And
Yeah,
most
I
of
know,
the
yeah.
artists, you've
You
got
know,
uh, there's a New York jazz musician, David Amram. He's 97. Um, I'm on the label, and I think a band called the Chameleons, kind of a
yeah, the
post-punk.
Chameleons, yes. I see the
So
Chameleons and just the old timers, that's legendary. I mean, there's
yeah, yeah,
I guess
a
this
lot
is
of
this is pretty much a legendary labels. I mean, including yourself, of course. Uh,
thank,
but I mean, I love the jazzy style. That's where I did see Nina Simone there and all this other stuff, and
yeah,
all these, and I'm like, wow. I mean, a lot of the songs I'm familiar with, and I love, and I think it's quite interesting. So
yeah.
your music kind of, it's kind of reminiscent for me, some Leonard Cohen, a little bit of Nick Cave because of the passion that you have. And I mean, these are some of my favorite artists, that really I'm inspired with. And I love the music, the
Yeah.
depth, and I can see that you have that depth. How would you describe your style in writing, your lyrics and
Um, I work hard on the lyrics. I'm no Leonard Cohen, but I think he was extraordinary. I think he was a almost a one-off. I'm a big fan of Nick Cave. I was a fan of Nick Drake. Obviously, he died in the 70s. I only got to hear his music when I was a teenager.
Mhm.
Um, I Lyrics are very important. I start with melody, but I take a long time. I'll write a song very quickly, the essence of the song, but the lyrics could take anything from 2 weeks to 10 years, you know. It's I put them on a back burner, and if usually if I really like the melody and really dig the music, I'll something will come along, and then it'll roll, you know.
and I know you're Irish, so there's another artist I really love who's Damien Rice, and that's another lyricist that just completely blows me away. But yeah, so I love the deep writing style that you have in your music.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's not for everyone. Some people want just up
Yeah.
music and pop music, and that's fine. But yeah, I think some people have discovered my stuff as they get a little older, you know, when they're even
When they
25, 30.
realize when they realize the importance of lyrics.
Yeah, and it's not all just a dance beat. It's nothing wrong with dance music, you know. It's just I just do what I do. It doesn't sound typically Irish. My work wouldn't be very well known in Ireland. It's better known in the UK than Ireland, to be honest. But it's worked in France, and it's worked in Europe generally, Portugal, Spain, Belgium, which I'm just grateful that people will come and see me, and I can keep making records.
Yeah. So when your first album debut was in 1998?
Yeah.
Yeah. How did you I guess how did that all started out? How did you started saying, "Oh, I'm gonna make an album?" Because you must have been a musician even before that.
Yeah, I was a member of a band, two different bands when I was very young, and I didn't really enjoy the democracy of a band because the musicians I was working with, they weren't, we weren't on the same wavelength. Um, and essentially, when I started working with Graham 31 years ago, everything started to come together in terms of he was Graham's a proper musician. I can play a bit of guitar and I can play piano enough to write stuff, but I'm not. I only play keyboards on the records, like sounds and this, production. Um, and really having Graham in the mix is why I got signed to Polydor in the first place. With, I might add, a little help from Bono's brother, Bono from U2. I don't know Bono, but I know his brother, older brother, Norman. And he owned a really funky kind of restaurant with it was a music venue as well. And he used to just bring me in there all the time. And if somebody was in town, somebody from one of the big record labels, he'd just bring me in, come on, do a show. And eventually I was seen by somebody from Ireland who told somebody from Polydor, and within a few months I was signed. So, I was maybe
Yeah.
the right place at the right time, and my work got out there.
Yeah, I mean, that was your debut album, became a bestseller in France.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it was a surprise. It got great reviews in the UK, and it just didn't sell very well, um, for whatever reason, but it did in France, and it's probably why I'm still making records that you know people who listen.
And I know you also released more recently, well, no, 2020, I think it came out, the New Year's Wish, which is acoustic.
Yeah,
And I love
yeah,
acoustic.
mostly the acoustic based material, some of which hadn't been released before. Um, yeah, a lot of those songs were from various albums, some, as I say, unreleased previously. Um, and it was Jason at the record label. He said, I'd like people to hear these. Do you mind? And I'm like, no, hey, it's fine. If more people get to hear them, great.
I know you also published some children's books.
Just one, yeah. I was a publisher in Portugal. Um, they just said, yeah, how do you feel about writing a children's book? And I'm a stepdad now, but I didn't have any children. I don't, have biological children. So I was like, well, I don't know. Yeah, I'll give it a shot. So an ex-girlfriend of mine is a very good illustrator, and she agreed to illustrate it, and it did quite well in Portugal. Actually, it sold pretty well, and the same publisher brought out a book of my lyrics in Portuguese,
Hmm.
um, Portuguese and English. So it was just something that came along. But I was the other 11 people. There was 12 books. I mean, the other 11 authors are far better known than I am. Like people like Jimmy Carter, the ex-president of
I didn't even
the
know he
US.
did that. I didn't even know he
Really, Julie Andrews,
Yeah, I
um,
see. Yeah,
Will
Julian.
Smith, all of these people. Arnold Schwarzenegger's wife, Maria Shriver, did one, and I'm looking at the list of the tw of 12 people, and it's like Sesame Street. One of these does not belong. But hey, I did it, and it was nice to be a part of.
You know what? One of the songs I like is Gemini. I was just wondering how did that? What is that song about? I mean, I know what Gemini is, but uh,
It's it's about a number of different things. I the Gemini I chose because my dad was a Gemini. He was born on the 28th of May. He's dead now. We didn't always get on, there was a huge age difference, and um, he was a Gemini. But within the song, I mean, he wasn't a drinker. He drink twice a year. He never went to bars, so that's not exactly accurate. But so the story in the song is about something else, and that was from I made a country album in, well, American country, um, kind of not full country, maybe a little bit Americana, I would call it. And I was with Warner's in France at the time for I had licensed a previous record, The Crying Room, and Warner's wouldn't release it. They just said, no, we can't release this. Barry Blake isn't a country artist.
mm,
Um,
it's-
which is, it's it's a fine album, but it was never released. So Gemini came from that record. And weirdly, years later, there's a very well-known young Irish band. They're signed to, I think they're signed to EMI in the States, and they've recorded a version of Gemini,
Oh,
which is going to be released in America. Probably, I don't know, next spring.
oh, really?
So
Oh,
yeah, so I mean, they're called Amble,
okay.
AMBLE, and they sold out a tour of the UK and Ireland recently. I think they're going to be big, but I think a good song can have many lives. It's also really interesting to hear your work interpreted by other people. They do something completely different with it, but it's great.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. I'll be looking out for that one.
Yeah,
So this album, The Death of a Society Girl, I know there's original artwork there from a
yeah,
series.
the artwork. It's Helen Abbas, who is Syrian, but she's based in Dubai, I believe, and we've used her work for Songs of Praise, also for New Year's Wish,
Mhm.
and now for Death of a Society Girl. It was Jason who got me into her work, and she's been very gracious to let us use her work, and I just think it suits the music. It feels right, you know.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful you know, illustration or cover. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I know you've worked with so many different people who's worked with like other artists as well, like Toby Pittman, who's worked with Paul McCartney and all these Shirley Bassey, who I really love, I love her music.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned, Steve Jansen from Japan. So you've got all these great collaboration with people and also the French electronic artist, Emile, or how do you pronounce that? Emile Simon?
Oh, Emily
Oh,
Simon. Yeah.
no, okay.
She's I did some work with Emily on her first album, and she was living in New York for a long time. I don't know if she still lives there, but I think her work is really mostly well known in France and maybe Europe, but it's great work. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, a big shout out to Seamus Promotion PR, who's always like amazing, introduces me to all these amazing artists like yourself, and yeah, yeah, and yeah, she's great.
Sean's great.
Yeah.
I'm very happy with her work.
So, do you have anything planned for this album? Are you gonna be taking it touring, going somewhere, playing it live?
Yeah, I think the first probably 3 gigs will be in Portugal. They're not confirmed yet, but we're hoping for September. Normally there's a turnaround. Summer is not a good time because unless festivals come in, but we release the record only, I think the physical's only available on the 5th of July. So it's quite late, excuse me, to get festivals. So mm, I'm hoping to do another show in Paris in the autumn. I played there last November, and I played in Belgium. So I'm hoping to go back, and Spain is somewhere I've played quite a bit,
Mm.
and the UK is a short tour of the UK as well. I mean, really, I've got a great band now. I've got an excellent drummer, and Graham plays piano along with. We have a computer with some stuff on it live. But three of us, the two guys, sing backing vocals, so it's actually really strong live. It doesn't feel it doesn't feel too acoustic. We've got a lot of meat there. The live drums just make a big difference.
Oh yeah, yeah. What about if there's a place you would like to go to, like I don't know, to the other countries, where would that be?
Well, I'd love to get the opportunity to play in the States and to I mean, I'd love to play in Hawaii if there was a possibility, it's Australia is somewhere, maybe Japan, it's really my stuff's only been known on mainland Europe, not even in Ireland. I mean, I played a show in Ireland in February, and it did go very well, but I really don't do very much here because I just don't think my particular type of music is for everyone here.
Hmm.
Uh, so, which is fine because,
That's really interesting, huh? I would think like you're Irish and they should be, hey, well, you know, yeah. I was gonna ask you. I mean, why do you think that is? It's just,
um, I think because I didn't come through the typical route. I
oh,
was signed to a
yeah,
UK label. I didn't go through the even before I'd done a gig as Perry. Um, as a solo artist. And I didn't go through that apprenticeship where people play in Dublin, they tour around Ireland. I didn't do any of that. I just went straight from the studio to signing to Polydor to guesting with different people touring. And um, just, yeah, some people just find it too melancholic. And hey, it's a big world out there. So long as you get some people to listen to your work, it's good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I know you have a song called California or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah,
California.
there's an album called California. I think I have a copy of it here actually. Um, and I've never been to the West Coast of the States.
Really?
So
Oh, oh,
I've been-
I think they would love your music here, honestly.
well, essentially the reason it was almost like a postcard of a picture, if you like, and
Hmm.
it's totally imaginary, almost like that. There was a nun years ago, Sister Wendy, and she was an art critic, and she had never seen any of the paintings in real life. She was just going by pictures, postcards, and books, and yet had a knowledge of art that was second to none. Pun not intended. I'm not religious myself, so um, but
Uh-huh.
she was remarkable, and this record is just really it's just a series of stories, and it's almost like a little mini movie set in probably the late 60s, the time of Burt Bacharach's sort of peak with that sort of music and a kind of the end of Flower Power and all of that. And it's probably early 70s really. And I mean, I've been to New York maybe 10 times. I've been in upstate New York and Connecticut, but I've never been to California. So and people were surprised when they went, "Why have you just put out a record called California?" I said, "Just what I imagine. It's not from experience, which is fine.
Yeah, speaking of Burt Bacharach, he was here. He actually talked to me. I was like, I was mesmerized for a moment. I was stuck. Like he was. I saw him at a show, a really good venue called the Blue Note, and
Ah,
he's right there. It's like it's an intimate, um, venue. And then I was eating something, and he goes, "What are you eating there? It looks really delicious." And I'm like, "Are you talking to me?" I love Burt Bacharach. And this is
that's brilliant.
his later days. You know, I mean, he passed away already, but I'm so glad I
Yeah,
got to see him anyway because he's one of see that's another example of one of those passionate songwriters that I'm talking about. That
yeah. He stopped doing it for the money 50 years ago. He was doing it because he loved it. He wasn't, okay, the money's great, yeah, fine. But Bacharach's writing, there's such a joy in the composition. And
yeah,
I think if I never went on stage again, if I had the right singer or singers, I'd be happy enough just to write for other people and produce.
yeah,
Um, I don't crave the spotlight. I like stage now. I used to be very shy on stage. Now I just, I interact, I talk, and I just want to do the best with the songs, you know, keep them as true to what they should be. But yeah, I mean, Burt Bacharach did an album with Elvis Costello.
yeah,
Fine record.
yeah. That's a good one too. I love that one. You know, he doesn't really
Something.
sing. You know, he tries to sing, but that's why when he performed here, he had some people that helped out. He still remembers he's 90 or something, 90 something when he played here, but he still knew how to how to play the notes of his music and everything. You know.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
He was working until a week before he died, you know.
right, right. Yeah, he's amazing. He's just so amazing. So that's another great. I'm glad you mentioned him. There's so many artists that has these amazing lyrics that I'm really like drawn to. Yeah. So I appreciate your music in that way. It's romantic in a way. It's kind of sad, romantic.
Yeah.
Is it romance all sad sometimes? It's not always that good, and so in fact, it's mostly sad. Um,
Yeah, I mean, the more melancholic tunes, I like strong melodies, but I like, you know, it's the style of music I make is quite similar to what I like or what I've always liked. I mean, bands in the 80s like Talk Talk, um, obviously David Sylvian.
yeah, yeah, David Sylvian, which is I mean, I wish he, you know, yeah, we don't hear very much of him anymore. So, his old stuff, I love them, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he lives in the States, I think. He lives in California, but I don't know what kind of music, if he's making music now. Um, but there are other people I appreciate, like Dead Can Dance. I'm sure you're
Oh yeah,
aware.
yeah. Oh yeah, the best.
Uh, uh,
Yeah.
Brendan would be an acquaintance of mine, Brendan Perry. I've met Lisa as well, Lisa Gerard. They lived in Ireland. They were friends of my sisters, so that's how I got to meet them.
Oh,
So yeah, but I love what they've done and live. They're amazing, and yeah, there's a real mishmash of this and that. You know, I like electronic music mixed with live elements. You know, like live guitars with electronica, but it doesn't have to sound totally electronic. You know, for me, I like the warmth that you get with the mixture.
yeah. I love Craig Armstrong. He has a,
Yeah,
he did some stuff with um the Cocteau Twins, Elizabeth.
yeah.
Yeah, so it's just so
Yeah,
beautiful.
Craig, I've met Craig. He was supposed to work with me on my first album, but he was doing something with somebody. He wasn't available. And we had a meeting in London. We were going to work together. So uh, he's somebody I would love to do something with sometime because he's really from memory, I think he's Scottish. Um, it's a long time since we met, but I like his work. There's
Oh,
another English arranger called Will Gregory. He's one half of Goldfrapp,
oh
uh,
yeah. Hmm.
a really fine arranger. I prefer the more mellow side of Goldfrapp to the clubby side. They're both good, but to my taste, and Gregory he's amazing. You know.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure you will be working with all these people because I could see that yeah, you've been very passionate and determined in your work and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I suppose I'm too old to do anything else. There's nothing else I really want to do. I've been dabbling over the years in screenwriting and that, but I haven't had any films made, so it's really essentially it's I think the songs are like little mini movies in a way, you know.
Yeah. Do you have anything like do you have any your next album? I know this was just released, but do sometimes people are already set to do the next one.
Oh, I've got about 30 tunes for the next one. Uh I'm pretty sure the next album is going to be kind of like a dark sort of trap lounge album.
Oh.
Something like that almost like Burt Bacharach with trap beats and strong melodies. And I'm really loving it. I've wanted to do a lounge album for years. And I'm yeah, it's got elements of a bit of sort of Wings era Paul McCartney as well, but
Hmm.
I'm really enjoying it, you know. Hopefully that'll come out next year, and then 2025.
Yeah, I'm gonna add your music to my playlist of all these artists that I love, Johnny Mathis, things like that. Just
Lovely.
yeah, I listen to like similar songs when I'm in the mood, kind of like in the same kind of genre, kind of related. I mean, they're not exactly the same genre, but I mean, it's kind of like the romantic, dark romantic side of heartbreak and love and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I've got to catch your show online. I have to, because I think from what you're saying, I think your show is exactly what I'd listen to, you know?
Well, see, my show is they vary. So I got a goth show, which is really a different side of goth. It's a little bit different. So it's not really about the song I'm talking the that part of me that loves all this romantic stuff is more a little bit more of the Leonard Cohen, the Nick Cave, that's I did David Bowie, the love songs of David Bowie, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? And then of course I play that too in the radio, but when I used to have another radio show called The Feast of Friends, it was a little bit more of that. But this one, the Mod Snap Radio, is a little bit more of the current artists that I do a lot of interviews with. Yeah, so it's a little bit of a mixed bag. And then and when I play in the clubs, I usually play dance music, which is not really necessarily love songs. Although
Yeah.
I would rather play love songs at the nightclub, but nobody would be dancing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm kind of sad about that. I really want to play very beautiful love songs, and then people don't slow dance anymore. That's a sad thing.
Yeah, it's just I reckon it's going to come back. I
You think
think,
so? Yeah, maybe
yeah, I think
start
so.
doing it. Just make them do
I
it.
think people will lose that cynicism, and it's bizarre how it just completely disappeared.
I
Like
know.
the
Yeah, after the disco thing, everybody was just like, "Oh, well, they did it in the '80s." When you have a prom, you have to play it, right?
Yeah,
But after that, it's just so different now. And I wish it came back. So I'm old school, and
yeah, me too.
that I love that kind of music. I mean, I'll never forget it. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm a diehard romantic, and that's just the way it is. Just like you are. I
yeah,
appreciate, and then you're a Taurus, by the way.
yeah,
So yeah, and
yeah.
that's why you have that creative side of being ruled by Venus.
Yes, yes, very much so. Yeah, I've been told that many times. Yes, being ruled by Venus. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's yeah, I mean the romantic side of things. I don't make overly political music, really, because politics have emotion, but emotions don't have politics. Everybody, no matter what they believe,
Mhm.
they go through stuff, you
Yeah.
know.
Your song "Nobody's Child." I love that one too.
Yeah, I'm very fond of it. It's that came about um fairly quickly. It was written during lockdown, and within 2 days, really, I had the guts of it, including lyrics. Some songs don't come about so quickly, but um, it's one on the record. I mean, the record's been finished so long. I didn't listen to it until it was mastered. I didn't listen to it for 6 or 8 months. So I'm already on to the next one.
Mhm.
But you have to wait until everybody's ready to put out your record. But by then, the person who's created it, they're usually a bit tired of it, until I start playing it live.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah, of course. I mean, if anybody want to check this out, I mean, it's available on Moochin About Records, and it's also on Bandcamp, right?
Yeah,
Death of a Society Girl is out now, and Perry Blake, Moochin About Records, and you can find that on Bandcamp or your website. There's a website as well. Another interesting thing I wanted to ask you was this picture on your press release. It looks like you came out of sci-fi.
yeah. I don't know which picture. Oh, yeah, of course. It's like the one with the cloak.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That was a thobe I was wearing. Uh, that was shot by a friend of mine in the woods, not far from where I live.
Mm.
A very good photographer called Kelvin Gilmore, and it was his idea to go to the woods. And yeah, it was an autumn day. It was kind of chilly but dry, and we created something quite. I wanted to go for something stark and different, and it does have vaguely gothic undertones as well, which I mean, I was always a peripheral goth anyway, so growing up, so
Oh,
it
it reminds me of something from the Twilight Zone or Star Trek. One of these which is very much I think that kind of you know with AI technology now, right? Everything is just, all those things are like, it was almost like destined to come. Um,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you remember Star Trek? How they had the phone,
yeah,
the flip phone, and then after that, cell phones came later on, right? But they were really like this.
absolutely. And I mean, there are stars that have been new stars and moons, etc., that have been found by the Hadron, the telescope in
Yeah.
Switzerland and CERN, and there through Star Trek, the new planets have been named. Well, they're not new, but they're new to us, um, using names from Star Trek, which I find hilarious.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Star Wars and Star Trek. Um, yeah, well, that's great.
That's a great shot, actually. That's why when I saw that, I'm like, oh, okay, what an interesting guy.
It's definitely, yeah, I wanted to get away from that whole kind of, I didn't want it to be a grungy thing. I wanted it to be closer to a Bowie sort of approach than just, jeans and t-shirt stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show, and I wish you I wish you the best in this album, and as well as the next ones that you are going to be making in the future. And I hope to bring you back on the show and talk a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Thank you.